actually build a nation from the ground up. And I don't just mean with borders and an army. I mean, how do you build the systems, the very DNA that creates justice, unity, and a peace that can actually last? Today, we're going to dive into a fascinating ancient blueprint pulled right from the book of Joshua. It tackles 3 huge problems of nation building with some solutions that are frankly genius. Let's unpack this thing. Okay, just imagine this for a second. Someone in your community accidentally causes a death. It's a total tragedy, a complete accident. But in this society, that little distinction, it might not matter at all. The victim's family is now expected, in fact, they're obligated to get revenge. And just like that, you could kick off a blood feud that could literally tear your brand new nation apart. So, what do? All right, so problem number 1 was huge. How do you create a system for justice that doesn't just spiral into endless cycles of vengeance? The answer wasn't to get rid of personal responsibility, not at all. It was to build a smart framework that could tell the difference between cold-blooded murder and a tragic accident, and then protect the innocent person from vigilante justice. And you have to understand this concept of the avenger of blood. This was a really big deal. This wasn't just some random person going rogue. They were seen as fulfilling a social duty. What that meant was, if you're the one who accidentally caused the death, you were now a marked person. Your life was in immediate, mortal danger from someone who truly believed they were doing the right thing. So what was the solution? This brilliant legal process called the Cities of Refuge Protocol. It's incredibly elegant. First, if you're the accused, you have to flee. Your only goal is to get to one of these designated cities and survive. Second, you state your case right at the city gate to the elders. Third, if they agree it seems like an accident, you receive protection. You're safe from the avenger. But, and this is the genius part, you have to await release. You can't go home until the current high priest dies. This event acted like a kind of national reset button. It was this definitive public moment that allowed passions to cool and officially broke the cycle of revenge. All right, so with a system for justice in place, let's pivot to the next big challenge. Every society has its essential people, right? The teachers, the judges, the spiritual guides. For ancient Israel, this was the entire tribe of the Levites. They were the cultural glue holding everything together. But they had a huge, unique problem. When all the land was divided up, they got nothing, no territory to call their own. And you can see the problem right here, clear as day. On one side, you've got all the other tribes with their defined borders, a place to farm, a place to build, a place to call home. And on the other side, you've got the Levites, an entire essential tribe with no geographical center. This creates a massive logistical puzzle. So the question becomes, what do? If you just leave them to fend for themselves, they could fall into poverty. If you put them all in one spot, their influence becomes isolated. So how do you support this vital group and, at the same time, make sure their wisdom and leadership benefit the entire nation? Well, the answer they came up with was, honestly, it was as simple as it was brilliant. Instead of isolating the Levites, they decided to integrate them. Instead of giving them one big chunk of land, they gave them dozens of small footholds scattered strategically throughout the entire nation. 48. That's the number. 48 cities were given to the Levites, and each of the other tribes donated these cities from within their own territory. Now, these weren't just city blocks. They came with pasture lands so the Levites could be self-sufficient. This wasn't a handout. It was a deliberate, strategic placement of the nation's intellectual and spiritual assets. And if you look at how this was done, you can see it was anything but random. The different Levite families, the Kohathites, the Gershonites, the Merarites, they were all intentionally spread out across all the different tribes. What this did was create a national network of administrators, teachers, and leaders, making sure no single part of the nation was ever too far from their influence. It was a system designed to literally weave the country together. Okay, so we have a system for justice and a system for national unity. You'd think they're in the clear, right? Well, not so fast, because the new nation is about to face its biggest test yet. A crisis born from a simple misunderstanding that nearly plunges everyone into a brutal civil war. So here's what happens. The tribes that live on the east side of the Jordan River, after years of helping secure the land for everyone else, are finally heading home. To mark the occasion and remember their shared history, they build this massive, really impressive altar right by the river. In their minds, it's a monument to unity. But that is not how the tribes on the west side see it, not even close. They see a rival altar. They see an act of rebellion, a declaration of religious and political independence. To them, this is treason, And their reaction is immediate and severe. They assemble their armies to go to war against their own brothers.
But then, right on the absolute brink of all-out civil war, they do something incredible. They pause. Instead of just attacking based on their assumptions, they send a delegation, led by a priest named Phineas, to go and ask one simple but incredibly powerful question. Why? And what happens next is just a masterclass in conflict resolution. The whole situation turns on a dime from the edge of war to this moment of incredible reconciliation. And it's all because they made that one crucial decision to talk before they started fighting.
I mean, just look at the gap between these two perspectives. It is massive. The Western tribes assumed the worst: betrayal, rebellion, a total split. But the Eastern tribes' real intention was the exact opposite. They were afraid that someday future generations would forget they were connected, and the altar was built as a permanent memorial that they were all one people. They explained that the altar was never meant for sacrifices. Its entire purpose was to be a witness. In fact, they even named it Id, which literally means witness. It was designed to prevent the very division that it almost caused. And as soon as they explained this, the threat of war just vanished. So when you zoom out and look at the whole picture, what you're seeing is this remarkable blueprint for a thriving society. You've got a legal system that chooses justice over revenge, a social fabric that is built on integration, not isolation, and a political culture that, when tested, chooses dialogue over destruction. 3 foundational problems met with 3 incredibly wise solutions.
And that really leaves us with a final thought that feels incredibly relevant today. It just makes you wonder, how many conflicts in our own world, maybe even in our own lives, are just fueled by a simple misunderstanding? And how many of them could be completely diffused if we just had the wisdom to pause, take a breath, and sincerely ask, why?